Good morning. This coming Sunday, July 25th, we're going to begin St. Luke's on Broadway this year with looking at the musical Phantom of the Opera. I was telling you yesterday how it's been said that this musical was written about a man who was obsessed with a beautiful singer. And it was written by a man who was obsessed with a beautiful singer. Yes, it's about the Phantom who is obsessed with Christine Day, this beautiful singer. But it was written by Andrew Lloyd Webber, who was obsessed with Sarah Brightman, his wife, an incredible soprano. And he wanted to write this romance, and he wanted her to be able to star in it. I think it's fascinating that Andrew received so much criticism from the press for casting his wife in this role, and I think he wrote the show, he's funding the show, why can't he cast who he wants? But oh, they were so hard on Andrew, and they were so hard on Sarah, saying she isn't going to be good enough to carry this role. There was so much criticism. Well, the first preview was on September the 30th, 1986. The first preview show before you really kind of say we're having opening night. They would have 10 preview shows. But after the first night, Sarah Brightman fell ill. It turned out that she had a throat infection and was unable to sing, and the doctor told her she needed to rest her throat. And you know, the crazy thing is you had fiction meeting fact, real life. Because if you remember, the show was all about how the diva, Carletta, who was the great soprano, suddenly loses her voice because of what the Phantom does to her, so that he can have his protege, Christine Day, have the opportunity to sing. Well, now Sarah Brightman, she is the star, and she loses her voice. And so they said, we're going to have to cancel the shows, the previews. But it was Hal Prince who stepped forward and said, no, we will turn to Clara Moore. She's the backup. We'll have her sing. Well, boy, that was suddenly so much thrown on Clara out of the blue. You had to suddenly be ready. They had to try to cram her into all the costumes made for Sarah Brightman. And Sarah was a smaller physical person than Claire, trying to get all of her into the costumes. They didn't have costumes made for her yet. This was still in previews. And Clara said, not only did I have to get into the costume, I then had to be able to sing and dance. In fact, I still had to be able to breathe. No, it was tough. But she found herself standing now in the wings. And in the wings, she said her knees were literally beating together. And she heard them announce, the role of Christine Day will not be played tonight by Sarah Brightman, but by Clara Moore. And she said, you heard this horrible, oh. I mean, it was so painful to be standing in the wings and to hear the audience's reaction. Everyone had been talking about Sarah Brightman. It was so hurtful. But she had to just put it out of her mind, and she said, I knew I had a job to go do. And so she went out, the star of the show, to bring it. And bring it she did. She nailed it. She knocked their socks off. I mean, there are all these write-ups about how incredible Clara Moore was. She looks back on that night, and I saw an interview with her in which she said, I'll never forget that night. It was more than 20 years ago when they did the interview, and she was saying, it still brings tears to my eyes. What that night meant and that moment and opportunity. She stood there in the wings, and the big struggle was, what if I'm not good enough? What if nobody likes me? You know, the interesting thing is, that's exactly what Phantom of the Opera is about. A phantom, a man, a disfigured face, who always felt no one would like him, no one would want him, he wasn't good enough, not good enough to be loved. It wasn't just the struggle of a Clara Moore or Phantom, it's the struggle we all go through. Because we all wonder, am I good enough? Will anybody like me? Am I good enough to be loved? As people of faith, you and I know that It's why God sent his Son into the world, so that you and I might be able to know that God loves us, that we are good enough to be accepted by God. And that's where it fundamentally begins. And it's a message that every human being hungers for and needs to know. This is a theme that we're going to hear in all 6 of the musicals this year that we look at with St. Luke's on Broadway. We will look at many different themes, but this theme will also be seen running through all 6 musicals. We tied it together that way because we know what an important message that is for everyone. And so, Phantom, what made it successful? It touched a nerve in all of us. It's been running for 33 consecutive years on Broadway and still going strong. And it will, because you and I struggle with, am I good enough to be loved? Am I good enough? Will I be liked? And the answer is yes. It's the good news of the grace of Jesus Christ. I'm looking forward to worshiping with you this weekend as we deal with this issue and look at this musical. Have a great day.